Hello and welcome to the latest video to hit our brand new Red Robin podcast YouTube channel. And it's something a little bit different as we welcome East Hull-born singer and author Mr. Chris Berry to discuss his latest rugby league related release, New World, and his love for all things Hull Kingston Rovers. Chris, great to be speaking to you. How are you doing?
Great, Chris. Fantastic at the moment, especially since we're playing so well. Obviously, it's close season now, but played so well last season. It's like going back in time for me to the 80s when I was always there. Watching the great team of those days with Gavin Miller and Roger Millerwood and people like that. It's superb.
Yeah, so obviously born in East Hull. Tell us a little bit about where you was born and how you started supporting the Robins.
I was born in Stone Ferry.
Right.
I was born in Myrtle Grove in Lorraine Street in Stone Ferry, a 2 up, 2 down. And then we moved out to Beverley when I was 5 for a couple of years, then moved on to Lambeth Road. So my first pints were in Lambeth and Pelican.
Yeah, still going strong.
I was in Pelican for a pint because we used to go there while we were in sixth form at Mally Lambert.
Perfect.
And so when we had free periods on a Friday particularly, we usually ended up in Pelican. And Lambeth was where we all sort of tended to congregate. And then, of course, Duke of York, which is where Roger Millerwood used to be quite a lot of times as well, in the back there in the beer garden. So I'm there a lot of time. We Phil Lowe and people like that.
Yeah, fantastic. Just a little side interest. I wonder if you know my father-in-law then, Brian Everson.
Know the name?
Yeah, so he was a teacher at Mallet Lambert, probably about the same time. Anyway, that's a little side issue.
No, I was there in the 70s, so I left and then I went to work. I mean, I went to watch Rovers. I was Rovers and City. I would watch Tigers as well, but Rovers was always, because I'm an East Hull lad, the Rovers were always a big thing for me. And I used to go with my brother Dave quite a lot. I've got 2 brothers, but the other brother Matt was a bit too young at the time to go. He's a massive Rovers supporter these days. And so is Dave. And all our lads have sort of followed it, and the girls too have followed the sport too and followed Rovers. And so it's been great. Dave, my brother, actually coached a team in Telford when he was a school teacher there.
Wow.
Dave taught at Mally Lambert, taught at Bransholme. I think taught somewhere else in Hull as well before he then went to Telford. And then he started up, I think it's Telford Raiders or something like that. And he was coach of them as they came through. And he's the lad, one of his lads now plays for Underbank. Or did play for Underbank until recently. So there's a big sort of rugby league sort of background for us really with it all. But I mean, I just recall those great days of the Gary Prom sort of going like a train, towards the line for us. Gavin Miller, like I said before, being just like probably the most amazing player that I'd seen at the time. But now, this team that we've got, this is the best team since those sort of days of 1978 to about 1985, when we had the great team of those days. And I think it's down to Tony Smith, obviously. I mean, Tony's the one that galvanises everything there, and he's done it everywhere, hasn't he? Let's face it. He's done it at Warrington, he's done it at Leeds, done it at Huddersfield, and now here as well. I came over to live near Leeds because I moved from I worked for the Hull Daily Mail,
right, and
then I moved over to Leeds to work for the Yorkshire Post, so on the advertising side mainly. But then I became an editor, writer, journalist, author, all those things in the last sort of 35 years. So I've done sort of quite a lot of stuff really. But one of the things I did with rugby league was, when I came over here to live, I started going around all the other grounds. I wanted to see all the other grounds that I'd not really seen. So I got to see some of the cracking old grounds like Fartown that Huddersfield played at before it was, no longer. I went to Crown Flat to Dewsbury to watch them play, and heard the Dewsbury only have one chant, and it goes Dewsbury. Well, they beat us 3-2 in a game where I think John Lydiate scored I think he scored a goal or something like that, but somehow. You remember the bad defeats, don't you? And you remember the really good ones. I remember Andy Kelly drop goal against Wigan at Craven Park, the old Craven Park, that won us the game. And Andy Kelly didn't drop goals, and he dropped it from about, I'm sure it was from 30, 35 yards out. And so those kind of things and those kind of experiences were kind of what made me think when I was going to write a novel for the first time. It made me start thinking, well, I'll use rugby league as a backdrop because I know the grounds, I know the places, I know the people, I know the type of players as well. I'd talked with them as well. I'd not play. I played when I was a kid. I played when I was, junior, a little bit of junior rugby, and my lads both played junior rugby league over here as well. And they played for, who did they play for now? They played for Garforth at one time, so they both played for them, and then and they had a good time playing. I remember one of my lads, he hadn't scored a try in his first few matches. He was like 6 or 7 years old, and he didn't look like he was going to score a try in a million years at the time. And so I put him on an incentive scheme.
Right. And what was you bribing him with?
My incentive scheme was £2 for a try.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it was I forget what it was now for a kick at goal.
Yeah.
He cleaned me out the next game. 5 tries, 2 goals. Amazing.
I think to be honest, most parents have been there, haven't they? If the kids have played football or rugby and they've tried to incentivise them to do it. The danger is that they've become too good, and then, like you said, it wipes you out.
That's right.
Then you're hoping next game maybe, well, don't play that well next time.
But I mean, it did show me, what the game's all about over the years. Whether you're a 6 or a 7 or 8 year olds just starting out, or whether you're playing it like the guys do, in open age and the like. And it is a hard, tough game. Even though all right, it's been cleaned up a lot over the years in terms of you don't quite get those punches that we used to see and that kind of thing that used to be, that are still shown on some of those old rugby league things that they put on YouTube and like these days, and you see somebody absolutely clobber somebody. But it's still a hard game and a hard physical game, and that's what I try and bring to bear with my books, and yet at the same time make the books really exciting. So they are the crime thrillers. I use rugby league as the backdrop because it's something that I know, something that I really enjoy. Yeah. And
so why crime then, Chris? Why crime and not another subject? What do you think crime and rugby league goes hand in hand, or?
Well, I'll tell you what. Some people will probably say, looking at quite a few of the rugby league stuff that's on Facebook and whatever, I think people think there's a lot of crime in rugby league, and I suppose sometimes there is. But I mean, I tweak it, don't I? I use the right kind of things. I think I used it specifically because one of my favourite writers, when I was reading novels myself to start myself into it properly, was Dick Francis, who did them about horse racing. And I thought, well, I love those, and I love what Dick Francis did with his novels, where he got all of the action into it, like of the races, so that when you were reading the bits where the races were involved, it's not all about races. It's about the crime and the thriller and that kind of thing. It's the vehicle for the whole thing. But when that got going, I thought that was really good because I felt like I was there with it. And I thought I can do that with rugby league, because one thing that I've always been told, I always commentate on everything. Do you remember having Subbuteo? I had I had Subbuteo football, Subbuteo cricket, and Subbuteo rugby, right? And Subbuteo rugby, I used to do it.
You must have had a big bedroom to put all them in.
We used to go around to people's houses. I don't know whether that's still. I mean, obviously, the kids don't play that kind of thing these days generally. But we used to have World Cups for the football, all for the rugby. But we'd take it round. We'd have 4 pitches in people's houses in different bedrooms, or different rooms that people were playing on, so that you could have it all. I remember going round to, I think it's Phil Hodgkin's place. I think he lived at the back of Mally Lambert down there on Ings Road, and I remember being there, and I'm sure we had 2 or 3 different pitches up. Anyway, but it was that kind of involvement of knowing commentary and in my head doing commentary about things, that I thought I can bring that excitement of a commentary like a people when they'll read some of the first novel where it's set in England, they'll read the first one and they'll think to themselves, do you know, I think he's doing David Doyle Davidson's line there that used to be on the upper side or whatever, you know. Yeah. Because I picked up things like that, and I purposely used a few little things in there so that when people read it that like rugby league, they'll get that. But the stories are very much crime thrillers with rugby league action in there as well.
Yeah, I was just wanting to ask you, Chris, before we talk about in a bit more detail about what the trilogy of books is about and obviously your new release. When you set out to write a book, do you know what you're writing, or do you start writing and then see where it takes you?
It's a combination, to be honest with you, Chris, because what happens is you have an idea, I have the idea of what I want to do with the book. I sort of put all my notes together. I sort of handwrite a load of notes. I give myself lots of different things. What do I want to do with it? How do I want the characters to move around? And then I also know roughly what my finish is definitely going to. I know what the final scene pretty much is going to be. Because for mine, with these, it's got to be something really dramatic at the end to do with a match, but to do with the end of the whole story as well. So it's pretty much. I'll probably change it next time now that I've said that, but you know, it's kind. But that's kind of what you do. But what I love to do is surprise myself. So I'm writing, and I'm thinking to myself as I'm writing, I'm thinking, oh, that's a great idea, you know. And so I do actually then. But it has to fit in with what all the characters are. And what you find is that the characters that you come up with grow. You know, they're not like cardboard cutouts, is the best way of putting them. They are all people with real feelings and real emotions. And so what you've got to, as a writer, have all of these different characters, and they've all got to have, you know, something about them in some kind of way. So you can't, you know, I had a lady who said to me on the first one, she said, Chris, I read your book, it's good, it's really good, but I wanted a bit more female kind of thing to it as well. So I thought, you know what, she's right. I need to bring a bit more on the female side as well. Yeah. I mean, there is that, but it's from it was maybe a little bit more male perspective in the first novel. So then you start thinking about it and start thinking, no, she's right. You can use that a bit more. But in terms of the actual storyline, yeah, I have a rough idea of what the storyline is going to be right the way through. But you do get to a certain point sometimes in a book where you think, oh, have I gone too far? You know, I did it with the first book. I got to a certain point in it, and there was a bit where I just had to drop it for about, you know, at the time for quite a long while, until I could get my head round what I'd written. Yeah. And then in the end, I had to go back and scrap quite a bit of it, just so that I got it, you know, the way I wanted it. If you were doing it as a film, you'd have the director's cut or something or whatever, you know. And you'd keep all these bits, you know, but you can't really do that. You just got to move on and get it sorted out.
Yeah, so Tough World is the third release in the trilogy.
Yeah.
Tell us how the story starts in book one and how we get to book two, and talk to us about Tough World and where we are there.
Well, book one is Tough Season. I'll show you this one. So that's book one, Tough Season. Yeah. Right, okay. And that one is set in a fictitious, they're all fictitious places and fictitious characters, although people might recognise people in them. But they start off in a fictitious town called Hopton, right? And then, funnily enough, I was driving around West Riding and I found two villages called Lower Hopton and Upper Hopton. Anyway, by then I'd written it anyway. So it's Hopton Town, I called it. And Hopton Town is like a typical old style rugby league football club where there hasn't been much put into the club. They're down at the bottom of the League One, so they're in the bottom tier of the professional ranks. Yeah. Right? So, and they're always struggling, and they've got a player playing for them called Greg Duggan, And Greg Duggan is the loose forward. He's in his mid-20s. He's always stayed with his hometown club, even though he's, could have got on further. But he's always believed in it and wanted to go with it. And years gone by, the club had some glory days when they got to the Challenge Cup final one time. And the chairman of the club, called Bill Garside, was there that day, and had his heart broken that day when they lost in the final at the end, right near the end as well. So, but Greg, then they're in a dire straits, but they're in. I won't give all the game away here, but even greater dire straits because of things that start happening around the club.
Okay.
The only thing I will say is that all you got to do is think, what happens with clubs when they, have a ground that might be worth money?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If you read between the lines, I think we can all guess.
That's it. Yeah. So that kind of thing. A new owner comes in. Greg gets made player coach at 26 years of age.
Okay.
Gets given a little bit of cash to get some players in. Gets an Aussie guy in called Kenny Lomax with a gap-toothed thing in the middle of his gap thing, tousled hair, and he's based upon the lad that used to play for Balmain Tigers years ago. I forget his name now, but he was. I remember seeing him on those old Micron videos that you used to get, and Balmain Tigers guy is what I based Kenny Lomax on. So Kenny Lomax becomes best mate, if you like, to Greg, and together they bring this sort of almost like Dad's Army team, for age-wise, that they've got of older but experienced players coming in with younger ones, and then it gets to the tumultuous finish where they've got the final game of the season. Will the club survive? Won't it survive? Plus all of the other crime bit related to it, because it's crimes that are related to what's happening with the clubs and what's happening with Greg. So that's book one. So book two is Tough Season in the Sun, right?
Yeah.
Because what I thought was, I'm using things that anybody in rugby league would that's seen it would probably have a lot off about with each other, and say, who the hell thought of having a rugby league team in Lanzarote, right? Because I went to Lanzarote on holiday. I thought I was going down I do quite a bit of running, and I was running on the seafront in Playa Blanca in Lanzarote, and there's a gap in between some of the hotels. I thought, you know what? It's just big enough for there to be a stadium there, right? Imagine putting a stadium there, I thought, and there'd be all sorts of shenanigans about why. And then I looked at what the sort of crime possibilities would be in Lanzarote, because I tried to fit it to what fits well with an area as well. And what happens is Greg Duggan, I won't tell you what happened to Hopton Town, but he ends up going over to play for Lanzarote Eruption. Think of Melbourne Storm, Lanzarote Eruption, that kind of thing. And it's called Eruption because there's volcanoes on Lanzarote. Right?
Yes.
So he then, because Greg's a bit of he is married in the first book, but he does get involved in a few things along the way. Bit Bond-esque, right? Yeah. And so he has a few affairs along the way. But also in book two, he's got to then Lanzarote Eruption are trying to get to Super League. They've been, you'll love this bit, they've been given a sort of lift up to the championship, right? So that they're already in the championship and they're trying to make it into Super League. But there's lots of things happening in the background, and some of the nefarious characters that were in book one surface again in book two. That's all I'm saying, but it's all to do with things in rugby league, right? Okay. Yeah. So that's Tough Season in the Sun. So we left that one with hopefully Lanzarote Eruption succeeding and getting into Super League, right? So then I thought, what should we do? I'd had in mind, because the last one came out in 2000. That one came out last year, December last year. And then I was already on with the third one, and I thought, well, it's World Cup year, or was going to be. So it's World Cup year. Why don't I base the next one around a Rugby League World Cup? And I thought, well, I don't want to have it in England because then it'd make it just seem like I was doing the same thing. I thought I'd have it in Australia because my eldest lad lives in Australia. He lives in Byron Bay on the east coast of Australia. And so it's got a great area to play, to put people in.
Yeah.
And I'd also been to Vanuatu. I don't know whether you've ever heard of Vanuatu, have you?
Right? The island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The archipelago of islands.
Yeah, wow.
Thousands of miles off Australia. Yeah. Well, my wife and I, Pauline and I, we travelled 11,000 miles from the UK to Australia just to find out from our son Russ that 3 days later we were flying out again off to Vanuatu in these islands. And it was a beautiful island, beautiful. I mean, it's about 100 odd islands there altogether. But Efate is the main island, or one of the main islands there. And Port Vila is the capital. And Port Vila is a really good centre. And I just loved where we stayed at this Breakers resort, where it's like beach huts almost, you know. And I thought, I could take this World Cup to Vanuatu, you know, like an emerging nation has got part of the World Cup as well as Australia. So Tough World, that's the cover. I haven't got it back yet, right? That's just I get it back next week, right? Wow. So Tough World is set in Australia and Vanuatu. But where we find Greg this time is he's just been sacked by a Lanzarote eruption. I can't tell you why. But he's been sacked. But I've told you about a few of his things that have happened to him before. So he's maybe got involved in things he shouldn't have done. But he's now back home in England, suddenly finds out that his dad is poorly and like going. And so he has to go, and his mum and dad live in Australia. Just so happens he's not been selected for England because he's been injured for part of the previous week. So you're finding him 2 seasons on from where he was before, right? So now it's a question of, you know, he's gone to Australia. Suddenly, an England team that have gone out there are starting to struggle a bit in their warm-up games with injuries. He just happens to be out there. So, and then there are lots of things that then happen again because of what's happening in the areas that I'm taking them to. So it's kind of they've always got a touch of the rugby league problems with them, plus what happens in those areas that I pick up on, you know, to get it that kind of way. So they're the three. So again, it's a big tumultuous finish again for Tough World, which is the third. And these were meant to be just a trilogy at first,
right?
But the first one did so well that we went to reprint with it. It's with Great Northern Books. They're the ones that produce them. Great Northern Books they've published quite a few rugby league autobiographies.
Yeah, that's right.
Before Keith Senior and people like that. So they were into it for the rugby league sort of side as well. And that one got me a nomination for the Crime Writers Association Dagger Awards. Dagger Awards being the big ones for them. And so that was great. That went to reprint. Tough Season in the Sun came out last year and it's done well as well. And I'm already taking, you know, I take orders for people who want signed copies direct from me. So like my book at the moment already is a couple of 100 books already sort of sold beforehand. And I do a hardback version for those people that want to say they've got a hardback copy. And then I do the paperback as well, which, you know, like I said, is doing great. So it's looking good already at the moment. But people can get them either from me as a signed copy, or they can get them from Amazon, or they can get them from Waterstones, or they can get them from WH Smith's or whatever. And they're all available online. quite a lot of the shops will have them as well. So like Waterstones in Hull, I usually do a book signing there. So I'm just trying to get a date sorted out for that at the moment. That'll be in the next few weeks. And I do a signing over in Warrington, a signing over in Wigan. I've got one hopefully lined up for St Helens as well, and another one in Leeds. So, and then a number of other places as well that I'll be doing from there. So, but I've got competition this year because there's that great Hull KR book that's just come out as well.
We've just seen that. So hopefully we're going to get them on board and talk about their book as well. And we've got another Steve Pollard, who used to play for Rovers, who's got a new book out as well. So you know what? It's almost like you wait for one book to come out, and then you've got three coming out all at the same time by Rover supporters.
Is a rugby league book festival for Hull KR over at Craven Park sometime with us all there, and then people can come and get them all signed. But I bought the other one online yesterday as soon as I saw it up, because like I said, if you saw my bookshelves somewhere, there's Hull KR books, there's Hull City books, there's all sorts around, so. And
it's great, Chris, because for me personally, I'm quite a big book reader, and I've been looking for something to get into. I've just had our second little boy, so time's been a bit precious, but now I'm ready at bedtime to read a book for half an hour, 45 minutes before I go to the land of Nod. And you know what? I think you've sold me on what my next book's going to be. So can people get these on the Kindles and online and?
Yeah, they can get them on Kindle as well. The Tough World, like I said, comes out next week. It's due back from the publishers to me on the 19th, next Friday, right? So and I've literally I'm going to be signing books all day that day and over the weekend, and getting the books out to everybody. All those people that have ordered, if you order any time now, between now and next week on Friday, order any time until the 19th. I'll sign them for you anyway if anybody gets in touch on it. And people can pay by bank transfer. I send you back my bank details and stuff, or you can pay by PayPal with me or whatever. Equally well, you can buy it straight with, if you don't want to bother with somebody like me and you want to get it from Amazon or whatever, then that's fine, or you can get it, like I said, in some of the Waterstones shops and some of the other bookshops as well.
Yeah, and that's great, Chris. And I think one thing that's really good about people from East Hull is that we like to support our own. So I really hope that our subscribers to our YouTube channel, our listeners on the podcast, our followers on social media, get behind you and get on board with this book, because it sounds a fantastic read, as do the other two in the trilogy. So there's a lot to go out there, isn't there? Especially with Christmas coming up, I'm sure you'll be urging people to put these in people's stockings.
Well, that's right. I've just done a mail out today to all rugby clubs as well, saying about perfect gift ideas, and I did a little flyer for them as well. So I've got things going out everywhere. I'm determined to get. And the great thing with these books is that I've already had loads of people say, "Oh, do you know this would make a great film or great TV series or whatever." I'm just waiting for somebody to call me now.
and we've all seen things like Up and Under and stuff like that. Stories like this really have got legs in it, haven't they? So is this the final story, or do you think there's scope for a bit more?
Funnily enough, not now,
right?
Because I've had a number of people who are now regular readers who have come to me and they've said, can you do more? Or actually, a few guys have said, I think there's more into this character. They're talking about Greg Duggan, the main, because he's the central character of the whole thing. I sort of equate Greg Duggan to being the rugby league version of Bruce Willis in his Die Hard films as John McClane, right? A little bit of Rocky thrown in there, because he's always got to struggle through to get to where he needs to, and a little bit of Bond, kind of, that he's got to sort things out in what's going on off the pitch as well, So there's going to be book 4. At the end of each book, I put, like most authors do, the start of the next book. So it's kind of, it kind of makes sure that you've got the next one to go. So book 4. I'm already on with.
Yeah, wow. So there's a lot to look forward to as well. But Chris, thank you for your time. It's been a really interesting discussion. And like I said, I really hope people go support you and buy the books, because it sounds like a fantastic read. And like we said, there's more to come from you.
Cheers, Chris. That's great. And Rovers till I die. Come on.
Take care.
Cheers. Take care, Chris.